The woke Olympics are in full flow. I don't mean an actual woke Olympics, although that would be amazing. We could watch woke people stretching to see something is racist. We could watch the mental gymnastics, the intellectual acrobatics, the long jump of logic, the diving onto an internet pylon, the discuss, but only one side of the discussion is allowed, and the obsession with race. No, it's just the normal Olympics, but they've gone totally woke. New Zealand have entered a transgender woman, which I can empathise with. I've also entered a trans woman. I'm not sure where Laurel Hubbard had her gender reassignment surgery done, but apparently she's got a 135 kilogram snatch. I mean, that's got to be one of the bigger ones. She competed as a male weightlifter and broke New Zealand records before transitioning at the age of 35. She doesn't just have the advantages of going through male puberty, she's been through male middle age. She's got what I guess we'll have to refer to as female pattern baldness. I mean, if you drew a moustache and a bowler hat on her, you'd have Oliver Hardy. She's not the only one. There's also transgender BMX rider. BMX is an Olympic sport now, apparently. Chelsea Wolfe. I mean, it's hard to tell if it's a sporting event or a stag do. Chelsea Wolfe wants to win a medal so that she can burn the American flag on the podium. If I was a trans athlete, I'd want to stitch the flag into a lovely two-piece. Don't have a go at the American government, have a go at your dentist. She also suggested that Trump should be assassinated in what's presumably called a mostly peaceful death threat. This must be the peace and tolerance of the left that I hear about. Somewhat unfairly, trans athletes can compete, but female athletes like Caster Semenya, who have naturally high levels of testosterone, aren't allowed to compete, even though she was born a woman, identifies as a woman, and is still a woman. This seems unfair. The whole point of the Olympics is that it rewards people who are naturally exceptional. Why exclude naturally occurring high levels of testosterone? It'd be like excluding people with big feet from the swimming. Athletes are turning their backs on their flags. Well, athletes from Western countries anyway, where you can actually shit on your own country without the risk of having your genitals hooked up to electrodes in a basement. It's a real threat for some countries' citizens. Krystyna Tsimanskaya. An unnamed athlete from Belarus, which is a socialist dictatorship, sought refuge in the Polish embassy to avoid being bundled onto a plane back to Belarus. Belarus has previously scrambled fighter jets to force a Ryanair flight to land so that they could arrest and detain a journalist called to detain a journalist. On Ryanair, of course, you have to pay £5 extra not to be sent to gulags. 2 athletes from Algeria and Sudan have been suspended for refusing to compete against Israel. They're surely missing an opportunity to reenact the 6-day war by getting athletes from all the countries round about Israel to attack the Israeli athlete all at once and then getting totally beaten by him. The Norwegian handball team have been fined for refusing to compete in bikini bottoms because they think that it sexualizes them. Here's an artist's impression of what that would look like. Listen, we've been in lockdown for 18 months, people are going to masturbate to you. Most men could masturbate to a picture of a dolphin's blowhole right now. And it's not just the Olympics, athletes everywhere are taking the knee. Colin Kaepernick originally took the knee as an individualistic act of rebellion against an imposed conformity of saluting the national anthem. Now it's not an act of originality at all, it's become the act of conformity. Taking the knee is meaningless if athletes are pressured to do it. There's an unhealthy precedent with collectivist political statements in sport. In 1938, the England football team all made the Nazi salute before a game with Germany, like their Prince Harry at a party before he went woke. There's a lot of physical effort involved in anti-racism. You've got to stand up to racism, then take the knee to racism. I'm not sure if our football players are fit enough to do it. It's burning them out before the match. I mean, I think Marcus Rashford is a great role model. Some people have criticised him for losing on penalties because he was too busy focusing on feeding school kids. As a right-wing Scot, I'd like to see England lose on penalties and kids go hungry. I way prefer Marcus Rashford to uber-woke Gary Lineker, who uses his power and influence to make money selling crisps to children. Have some shame. Why don't we allow our footballers to protest about the issues that they personally care about, instead of forcing them into groupthink? While racial discrimination in Minnesotan police might be the most pressing issue, for Gareth Southgate, other people might want to protest against different issues, such as slaves building Qatar's football stadiums, or slaves making football boots, or slaves stitching together football strips, slaves sewing together pride bands to be worn at football events, or slaves being sex trafficked to large football events. Scotland and Germany's football teams only took the knee when they were playing against England. Why does racial injustice only matter to them when they're playing England, one of the most racially diverse football teams in the Euros, one of the most racially tolerant countries in the world? Surely they'd make more of an impact taking the knee while playing a team from a country where racism is still accepted. It's like Pride. Companies only support gay rights in countries where gay people already have equal rights and where it's not actually needed as much as, say, Qatar. Apparently football fans are all racist because they boo players taking the knee. But the exact same fans have been fine with long-standing campaigns such as Stand Up to Racism or Kick Racism Out of Football. Maybe it's not the anti-racism that bothers them, maybe it's the collectivist groupthink and the Marxist organisation it stands for. And all this kneeling, I think if George Floyd came back, it's the last thing he'd want to see. Footballers say they're kneeling for equality, but we have equality in this country. Everyone is equal under the law here. And if they are kneeling for equality, why don't we have racial equality in the team? White people are woefully underrepresented. Everyone lost their shit when the mural of Marcus Rashford was defaced, but it wasn't defaced with racist language. And when Beckham lost penalties back in whenever the fuck it was, man, people were burning like literal effigies of him. This is just what happens with football. Why do we look to sports stars for socio-political opinions in the first place? Tyson Fury was criticised by gender studies graduates for having terrible opinions on homosexuality, gender and women, but Tyson Fury spends all of his time perfecting one particular skill, punching people in the head until they fall over. And he's really good at it. He's the best in the world. Just let him focus on that and let other people focus on doing the gender opinions. And why is nobody giving the gender studies graduates a hard time for being shit at punching people in the head? It's probably just as well for boxing that Tyson Fury focuses on punching people in the face instead of trying to be woke. There have been catastrophic declines in viewing figures for the Olympics, NFL, MLB, NBA and other sports that have kneeled down to suck woke dick as punters turn off from all the lecturing. It's all posturing anyway. The NBA takes so much money from China that LeBron James refused to condemn China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims. The Olympics Committee are so scared of China that they refuse to recognise the progressive independent democracy of Taiwan as its own country, instead calling it Chinese Taipei. Sport has always been at the forefront of genuine integration. In the 1970s, Millwall, which is supposedly a den of vicious racism, had more black players than The Guardian had black journalists, because The Guardian is actually really fucking racist. Football did more for tolerance and diversity before it went woke. Sport doesn't need to be gentrified by gender studies graduates trying to force their agenda down everyone's gullets. We just want to watch people kick a football around for a bit or punch someone in the face. If anything, the hyper-focus on race, constantly calling white people racist for having the temerity to simply exist, isn't helping at all. The sense of national unity, even I felt it as a Scot, the sense of national unity during the football as we watched a crying German girl and a true British hero with a flare in his arse lasted all of about 5 minutes before woke people ruined it by calling everyone racist. And the vast majority of the online racist abuse that England players receive actually comes from overseas, and a big proportion is from Russian and Chinese bots who are seeking to sow social division in the West. Seems to be fucking working. And why can't we hear a plurality of individual political statements from the players? I'd rather hear Jack Grealish's take on overseas investment development with regards to microcredit, or what Harry Kane thinks about Keynesian fiscal stimulus policy, than just see everybody do the same thing. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe and share and all that stuff. And if you're feeling flush, please sign up to my Patreon. There's a link below for PayPal and Patreon and all that kind of stuff. I do Patreon-only content, I do Zoom shows. And also, if you're at the Edinburgh Fringe this August, please come and see my shows. I'm doing a solo show called Cancel Culture, and I've got a late-night improvised stand-up show. It's the ultimate free speech show. Basically, what happens is the audience writes down what they hate, it goes into a bucket, then we pull it out, and the comedians, we've got a panel of comedians, they have to say why they hate that thing, no matter what it is. There's no escaping. That's called Hating Live. It's been running for like 8 years. We've taken it all around the world. It's really good fun. Both of those shows, Cancel Culture, my solo show, and Hating Live, they're in Maggie's Chamber at the Three Sisters. My solo show is at 6 p.m. and Hating Live's at 10:30 p.m. But please book fast, because tickets are going to sell out. Like, we've sold like a third of them already. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you there. And yeah, cheers. I've been Leo Kearse. Goodbye. Bye-bye.